Okay, hello. So we are doing our second gathering. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining me. Um, Already we have felt the energy of the topic, which is energetic hygiene. I will speak a little bit on this and then I'll turn it to you guys and we'll go back and forth. So I think most people at this point are aware of doing things like smudging the room or like using their crystals to clean things or something like that. And I'm pretty sure that's what most people think of as something like energetic hygiene. I'm curious what you think, the two of you, what you think that does and how effective that is.
What I think is because I've done it, I have done things like that in the past. And what I believe it does, it takes the energy that is not mine outside my body. That for some reason the energy comes to my body and I accept it, but then I'm not willing to keep it in my body. So I do these things to clean it out.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I don't know if I'm correct, but that's what I think it happens.
All right, thank you. Stephen?
I think it's a basic level of like keeping your energy clean, your house clean. But if you're under psychic attack a lot of time, it's not enough to get yourself out of it. There's a lot more inner work to be done. Yeah,
Mhm. And what do you mean by psychic attack?
like if you break a dish or your family is like constantly on your back about stuff. If you don't feel right inside, you feel like everything's going wrong, and you feel maybe like life's against you almost.
Mhm.
Yeah.
This might be dark, but apologies. I think for a lot of people who end up committing suicide, that is like probably one of the biggest psychic attacks ever, where there's a lot of uh, thoughts, probably repeated thoughts, and a very strong feeling that makes them feel a very certain way, and it's not right, right? It's against life, whatever they're feeling and thinking. And if they actually believe that and give into it, then they go for it. And to me, I think that's one of the strongest kinds of psychic attacks because those kinds of thoughts, those kinds of feelings, they're not real, believe it or not. They come from somewhere else. And so you don't have to believe what I believe, but I believe that psychic attack is when what I call entities, which are basically low vibrational energies, basically parasites on humans. So when entities try to get your energy, they have to psychically attack you in order to convert your life force energy into something they can eat. So just like a tree can have a parasite, often a healthy tree is not targeted by a parasite. Often an already diseased tree who's already weak, meaning their boundaries are porous, right? The parasite attacks that kind of tree. So that's very similar to a human. If you have an ego and you have strong ideas about who you are and who you aren't, and especially the stronger your ego and the further you think you are from your true self, you're very diseased. And you're very open to psychic attack because, for example, if you grew up in a kind of family where a Western education, going to university, getting an advanced degree, and getting in quotation marks, like a good job, you think that's who you are, that's what you want to be, and then alongside that, you are associated with people who read the same newspapers and talk about the same kinds of things, and they go, "Oh, I'm a smart liberal person." Like if you think that's your identity, it might take you very far off from who you might be. And I've literally met people, and you don't have to agree with me, but I've met these people and they agree with me that they're meant to live alone in the forest and be a little wild. Like if they did that, they're actually living their true spiritual purpose. And there are people like this who are famous in history. Like in the United States, we have someone who founded a lot of state and national parks called John Muir, who is very similar. He just he lived in the forest and he was a wild man, and he like strapped himself to the top of the tree and would like ride the tree during a storm, and it'd be like kind of like crazy, but like in a spiritual ecstasy, So those kinds of people still exist. I've met some of them, but they're not doing that. They have a corporate job. They're supporting their family, right? They're there for their kids, and their kids are adults, so they don't actually have to be there as much for their kids anymore. They're allowed to retire from their mundane life and go to their spiritual purpose. But anyway, the stronger your ego is, the more diseased you are, so to speak. And therefore, it's easier for an entity to attack you. And how an entity attacks you is, I see it as one of two ways. It either just sucks all of your life force energy. So you ever feel tired all the time, no matter how much you've slept, you wake up like exhausted, and maybe you start to develop something like adrenal fatigue. Maybe you have trouble even falling asleep because your cortisol levels are too high and stuff like this. If you have this, you probably have like the itch at the back of your throat where you feel like you're going to come down with a cold, but you've had this for like several days now or weeks on end, or maybe you do have a cold, but it doesn't get better for like 2 months. You have had bronchitis for like 2 months. This is the kind of psychic attack where your life force energy is just being sucked from you. You might have frequent bloody noses, for example. There's another kind of psychic attack that's related more to this thing, like your ego. First of all, if your ego is strong, even that life force energy psychic attack is possible. But if your ego is strong, this other kind of psychic attack is really, really possible, where whatever makes you agree to, that is who I am. Like that corporate job lady, that is who I am. Whatever makes you agree to that is the very thing that the entities use to bring you down. So a lot of times, if you think you must be something other than what you are, it's shame. So whatever gives you shame. For a lot of people, it can be insurmountable credit card debt. Like it's just, you can't even handle it in this lifetime. And it's just growing and growing and growing and growing. Same with student loan debt. Other things like where, especially if you have that thing with bronchitis for 2 months kind of thing, you might have some sort of issues with performing in life and kind of like doing as well as you could. So maybe you're in an underpaying job, or your talents aren't being used, this kind of thing. So like the shame can attack you in all kinds of ways. It can be very small, like you realize that your boss thought you said something, but you actually meant the opposite. But now it feels awkward to like go and like correct him on that little thing. It could be as small as he thought you ate 4 donuts when you only ate one, but somehow he heard four, and he thought you, and now to like, correct him, you feel embarrassed, but it like hurts you that you're so misunderstood. It can be as small as that, but it can be much bigger, of course. So when you're under psychic attack like that, it can vary in magnitude, and sometimes, yeah, it can get as bad as you don't want to live anymore. So any questions or comments on that?
So what did you said? Can it be an unbalance in our own energy?
What do you mean?
Like it's not only that the energy gets dirty from the outside, it's also getting dirty from the inside.
Yes, yes. So basically, this in quotation marks dirty energy is in your shadow, because basically no ego on earth, like no ego on earth goes, I'm a bad person who hurts other people, and it's better that I don't live anymore. I mean, on a day-to-day basis, they don't think like that. Under psychic attack, they might think that. But it's more like the most psychotic, narcissistic person still thinks they're a good person, right? So anything that they do that actually harms others, they bury and they keep in their shadow. And so the thing that forms your ego is an entity, usually, long story short, if you grow up in a family where your performance is overvalued and who you actually are is undervalued, you usually adopt guilt in order to overperform and do what your parents need, whether it's like excelling in school, excelling in a sport that's not your favorite thing, actually. Maybe they make you play tennis or make you play, soccer, football, but really you want to do pottery. But they would never value pottery, so they never put you in pottery classes, And for you as an adult to discover pottery classes might be like a big victory. So if you're young and in order to survive in your family environment, a guilt entity might come along and help you feel okay doing whatever you need to do, which is basically energy prostitution, doing whatever you need to do to make your parents okay with whoever you are so they'll continue supporting you. And so your parents ultimately benefit from you being this other thing, not you, right? Your parents benefit from this other thing, and not even your parents' entities. And so the thing, like let's say in this case, the guilt that makes you feel okay going, yeah, I'm really good at tennis. I'm going to become like the state, like champion in tennis, when that's not even your favorite thing. You burn out doing tennis. And I think we even know actual sports stars who have burned out doing their actual sport, probably because it's not their true self. So, so the thing that makes you okay with that, but you don't realize it because you're happy to get, your parents' approval and their support and their love, you push that into your shadow, so you don't even feel it. You don't even realize you're not a tennis person. You think, you might even go as far as to think that pottery, ugh, who cares for that? You might even downplay or look down on the thing that's actually you. So this thing in your shadow, that's, let's say, so now we have to talk about what energetic hygiene really is. Okay, like what are we even talking about? So you don't have to agree with me, but I will present an idea that in order for you to be born and live and have like a long, healthy life and die in a way that's conscious, you can't have too many of these negative energies in your shadow. Um, However, if you have a lot of these negative energies in your shadow, you'll probably be addicted to drugs. You'll be addicted to social media, like you're totally addicted. You're addicted to creating an online persona that's not even you, and you're like feeding that, like becomes an entity. And a little side note, the kinds of people who make content where they play versions of themselves that are not themselves, like characters, like caricatures of themselves, this is not healthy for their ego. They're feeding over and over and over again a different version of themselves that makes a lot of money and gets a lot of attention, and entities using that. So they're feeding an entity the more they play this like character of themselves, let alone if you're on social media with your, like, let's say your husband, and you guys both play characters and you do jokes and skits where you pretend you're cheating on each other. Let's see his reaction. Like, this is very sick. This is very, very sick. So you will be addicted to this if you don't get rid of these negative energies in your shadow. You'll be like proud of your accomplishments, and like you'll just live off of the surface level mundane things that these things do give you, which is similar to the surface level mundane things that your parents' approval meant to you. Because in the end, if you are that tennis person or that whatever person that your parents liked, their approval probably did not feed you. It did not feed you in a way that learning pottery would, right? So basically, we're talking about spiritual warfare. And this might seem like a over the top, kind of like heavy duty topic, but honestly, it's real. You don't have to focus on it all the time in your life. And certainly some kinds of religious people I know think everything is spiritual warfare, but they're mistaken in thinking that they're good and everything else is bad. So they're afraid of all those bad things out there. And for me, the spiritual warfare is truly, you've already accepted something in quotation marks bad that will necessarily shorten your life, give you disease, make you addicted, and honestly live a life without dignity. Like, you're okay lacking dignity. So those skits online where you're pretending something is happening and you just want to see your partner's reaction, maybe even like pop a balloon full of like weird stuff on his head and see his reaction, that's not dignified. And even if you don't do that kind of thing in your day-to-day life, like you probably do things that are not dignified for you, which is why if your boss thinks you ate 4 donuts when you really ate one, that really triggers you because it reinforces this idea that you don't have dignity. So there's this idea of spiritual warfare where, in my opinion, like newborn life, like a newborn baby, for example, often has just a lot of life force energy, and babies in particular grow really, really quickly because of their life force energy, right? This is the light feminine. it's the kind of thing that makes you smile. It's the kind of thing that you just are drawn towards because it's life itself. There is stuff that takes that away. So if you pervert the innocence of a child, if you, especially in the United States, we have like like a nationwide psychic attack where parents pretend that Santa Claus is real to their kids and lie and lie and lie and give all these presents saying they're from Santa Claus. And then at some point, every single child in the United States was told, he doesn't exist, he's a lie. And it's just like an intense psychic attack where they have a lot of trauma around finding out that Santa Claus isn't real. It's an intense lack of trust with your parents and society, everything. And yet we think it's cute, we think it's fun, but that's a perversion of the innocence of a child. And when we pervert the innocence of a child in other more disgusting, sick ways I won't go into, we think, you need to go to jail for the rest of your life. So these kinds of things are the equivalent to the parasite on the tree that already takes the diseased tree and makes it die faster by sucking whatever life force energy it has remaining. Does this make sense? And this happens through intense psychic attack, like you're just under psychic attack for months. If you've been in a lot of debt, you know what I'm talking about. Maybe like your whole year is gone, like your life is gray, right? Um, if you've been in a bad relationship where you're being psychically attacked through the relationship, oh my God, you might have lost 10 years off your life, and you can see it in your face, and then when that person's finally gone, you become brighter, you become younger. It's crazy. So these entities primarily live in other humans because they're parasites on humans. So they don't just float around in the air most of the time. And the first entities you encounter are your parents' entities. So they pervert your innocence. And then you agree to, let's say, for example, the guilt in your shadow. So you grew up with this guilt in your shadow, you have a strong ego, you live a life that's not yours, and you're asking to burn out and you're asking to have a very short, diseased, unfulfilled life. The thing is, you don't feel it, so you think it's normal. And this is where we start to talk about consciousness levels and realities. So I'll go into a really short thing where I had a neighbor who thought she was working on herself, but honestly, she wasn't quite really. And her life was horrible, but she didn't realize it. She had friends who stole from her. All of her taxi drivers stole from her. She had shame around her dog and her dog's behavior, which is really her shadow. So that's her inner child. So she had shame around her dog's behavior. So she felt like she had to train her dog properly so that when she left the country for several months, someone could take over her house, take over her dog's care, and it would be okay. And she got it in her head that unless she trained her dog properly, she wouldn't be able to find anyone to take over her house and the dog and everything. So she hired the only dog trainer she knew, who I've seen him work. That's not dog training. He will sit meditate with you the whole time, but like not do anything with your dog, which can be frustrating for the person. He shows up 30 minutes to an hour late, doesn't always make up the time. He doesn't notify you that he's showing up late because he doesn't have a phone. I mean, this is like just like a uncontrolled, non-adult acting, unprofessional person who pretends to be giving dog training lessons. And she complained about him all the time. But she kept hiring him again and again and again because she felt like she needed his services. And I'm like, there is a female dog trainer that you will encounter as soon as you let him go and you say no to the universe. This is not with my boundaries. You're going to encounter a female dog trainer who's more holistic, who is better at training and is more sensitive to your dog's needs because your dog was a former street dog and still exhibits a lot of trauma. And she's like, I just don't believe you. I believe you believe that, but I just don't believe it. And therefore, I'm going to keep giving this guy money. Eventually, she left the country. Someone did take over her house and her dog's care. And the dog doesn't behave any different than before. And that person doesn't care about the dog's behavior. So it didn't really matter, is what I'm trying to say. Guess what? The other day, I walk into a woman. She's, walking a dog that I know. And I'm like, is that, that dog's name? And she's like, yes. And then we're chit-chatting and she's a dog trainer. She's a female holistic dog trainer who does like Reiki and like other energy work on dogs. And she houses dogs when the parents are away and she walks the dog. Like she would have been a perfect, uh, alternative to this other crazy bad guy dog trainer in quotation marks. The thing is, I not only believed that this woman existing was possible, I even felt her presence. I knew she existed before I encountered her in real life. You could say she existed in my reality. But that woman, she, due to her boundaries, probably would never have encountered this other woman. Does this make sense? And therefore, she's like, I just don't believe you. It's almost like she doesn't want to encounter that other woman for whatever reason. She almost wants her life to be like shitty. So there's this idea that if you have different consciousness levels, you literally live in different realities. And back to people and their entities, entities will attack you using your relationships with humans. So when I spent a lot of time with this woman with the, addiction to the bad dog trainer, my life started to go real crazy. And the things that were happening were the exact same things that happened in her life. So I had to stop hanging out with her and I had to let her know why. And it was painful for both of us. And it was frankly really awkward. But because this is how I think this particular thing happened, my heart was open to her. But she's a very traumatized, closed off person. So her heart was not open to me. But through the months, her heart started to come open to me. And I could tell because she was sharing more and more and more details about her life that were like, secrets. And as soon as she started doing that, my life started to turn shitty. And like the same things were happening that she complained about all the time, but she accepted that I would never accept. So in order for me to stop those things, I knew it was her. So I had to cut her off. Not be mean to her, not be angry with her. It's just our realities are too different and yours clashing with mine is very painful. And I just can't stand for that. I love myself too much. And so this is an example in which when your heart becomes open to someone and you guys share like an open-hearted connection, if their vibration is significantly lower than yours, and therefore they have more strong entities in their shadow, and their consciousness is different, they're going to start to infect your reality with their reality. And maybe you've had a crazy ex, like a crazy ex, and as soon as they enter your life becomes chaotic. And then when they leave your life, you have order over your life again, right? Um, what is this bringing up for people? Any questions or comments so far?
Feels like the entities just kill all your creativity and imagination as well from when you're a child. So you have like no life force energy to create anything.
It definitely can, especially if you have a shame entity. And also, I would say this: the people who are more real, meaning they have like more, I would say, God spark, and they're probably on a more hardcore spiritual mission. They probably have experienced way more trauma and were way more traumatized by the things, whatever their parents did, than more of like an NPC, non-real person kind of person. You're surrounded by these kinds of people who the things that really bother you don't bother them at all. In fact, they kind of like it. So they're just almost like, the kind of person who listens to loud, banging music, really loud on their earbuds, and they're just like distracted all the time. And like every moment of the day, they're listening to a new song and maybe like switching the songs and they're like all into it. This kind of person's pure NPC. Like that kind of thing should hurt a spiritual person. Like if you're conscious, that will hurt you because those vibrations are low. But that person, they're like thriving with it. They're into it. They're even proud of how deeply into each band's catalog they are aware and knowledgeable. So that is like pure NPC. So I wanted to say that not only can you be infected by other people's entities and their realities when your heart open to them, anything connected to that person can potentially be used as an avenue to hurt you. And again, this might sound like heavy and stuff like this, but like we do have to talk about it sometimes. You don't have to think about it all the time, but you do have to be aware of it. Like if your dad co-signs a car loan for you and you're driving around in a car, now what? What do you think?
The energy from your dad is mixed with yours.
Yeah.
Car.
Yes. And whatever your dad's shadow is will most likely show up in your use of the car. So is the car, for example, does it always break down? You always get it fixed. And then it's truly fixed, but then it breaks down again. Okay. that has something to do with your dad's energy, right? And he probably accepts that in his life, and he doesn't see that as anything wrong. He actually thinks that's just the way life is. He doesn't think that's anything to change. And I think both of you are aware, when you make strong changes and shifts in your life, when you actually heal, your life changes. It's like a miraculous difference from like night and day kind of thing. So a lot of people don't even believe this is possible, like the dog training girl lady. She doesn't think this is possible. She's never even experienced it. And the thing is, she doesn't want to experience it. She's too addicted. She's like addicted to the bad people in her life. So, like, for example, that person, I don't mean to pick on her, but like her family has financially stolen money from her, but she still loves her family. So that's why she accepts her friends, even her landlord, cab drivers, other people, like saying one price and then charging another at the end kind of thing, like basically stealing money from her or like borrowing money and like never paying it back. She's just okay with it. And I don't think that's her. That's what she had to adopt so that she could get, like, in quotation marks, attention from her family. Like her family would only like her when she was the mark. Does this make sense? So when she's the mark, they will like her. So now she just wants to be the mark everywhere in life, which is why when I tell her there's like a female holistic dog trainer who will be great with your dog, she's like, I don't want that. Because then she starts to feel exposed. She kind of starts to feel like, well, no one loves me for who I actually am. They only love me when I'm a mark. So please don't take that away from me. They're almost like allergic to healing, you know? Um, this energy can be transmitted in all kinds of ways. If someone just writes you an email, I think you've experienced a psychic attack just from the email, right? Whatever they wrote was not cool. Maybe you get a text message from someone. Man, if that text message is from someone like that really has a deep hold on you, like your mother, she text messages you, you're like down and out, maybe for 2 months, you know? Um, Electronics themselves can be attacked or entitized, like you're trying to make a purchase and it doesn't go through repeatedly, or it doubles back on you, or you ended up buying it like twice and then you had to argue with your bank to get a refund. This kind of thing. The electronics, for whatever reason, are really, really, really easy for entities to infiltrate. But other things, like people can give you an object that if you're sensitive enough, you'll realize is cursed. And even that person might be your ally. They might be a really good friend of yours. But if in that moment they're under psychic attack and they give you something, that object can be charged with their psychic attack, and they don't mean to be hurting you. They love you, but they're an unwitting host or avenue through which the entity can work. So if you just hold that object, you can like feel the energy going up through your arm and starting to get to you. You have to do crazy magic to get rid of that object. This is where doing certain things like magical rituals and stuff, I personally think help, but it's not the magical rituals themselves. To me, it's not like I've seen people under crazy psychic attack where really there's like an entity haunting them, and that entity is so strong you can like smell the entity's presence in the room. Like this is a very strong entity, very strong attack. So I've seen people under this level attack just be like, I smudged the room. I shouldn't be under attack. Like they give their willpower over to what I consider to be, and you don't have to agree with me, but when you do smudging, what I believe you're doing is you are using the air element to help clean. On top of that, you're using the spirit of the plant to help clean. Those are the two things you're calling upon. You don't have to agree with me. What can they do if deep in your shadow you want or like being attacked? Like that girl who prefers to be the mark, you know, it doesn't even matter what she does to her house. She's probably going to be invaded all the time in all different kinds of ways, including people just walking to her into her house without knocking, which I know happens. You know, like she's just going to be invaded all the time because her ego not only agrees to this, but likes this, like thrives off of it. Like this is the reality she wants to live in. I'll give one more example. If you rent an apartment or a house, that is your landlord's body. So if your landlord is a person you have a good relationship with, thank goodness for you. But if they have all kinds of unhealed stuff in their shadow, you're going to see it in your property. And unless it's your property, you really can't do anything about it because it's your landlord's shadow. So there's many ways in which this can infiltrate your life. One more thing, if your parents pay for your education, what's up with your education? You know, does it help you become that person who's allergic to pottery? Okay. Any thoughts, questions, or comments?
Well, I can only say it's a lot of work we need to do to, well, that's what I understood, to find out what energy am I giving, am I feeding to be who I am right now.
Mm.
So, yeah.
I remember taking a workshop with someone who was really upset. She had just come out of what was probably sort of like a small time cult. And she was really upset that she'd given so much time and money over to some organization that in the end she decided didn't have integrity. And she was just so mad at them. And during the whole workshop, she was just angry. And she's like, I'm going to take back my power. Stop taking what's mine and this kind of thing. And I'm like, but you did it. Like you did it. Like you used that cult to put yourself down. And now I can feel your energy. It's not good. Like, you ever talk to people and maybe they have a fake persona? Usually it's a masculine woman who has a really fake persona. And then you'll see like a flash of emotion on her face, and it's just like not happy or jealous or this kind of thing. She had that all the time. I'm like, wow, you're really scary. You're like, I see your true self and you're scary. So it was like the cult didn't have power over her. It's almost like she was using the cult as a puppet to fake attack herself from the back and go, oh my God, I'm the victim. Um, Stephen, do you have anything to say?
What did she do after the cult?
What did she do after the cult? Um, why does it matter?
I'm just wondering if she had a repeating pattern and she's just done it all to herself again in another way.
Basically, a lot of people are on what they think of as a healing journey, but what they're unwilling to do is have energetic hygiene. So they just go to session after session after session, and honestly, very little changes. And if anything, at its worst, and this is unfortunately the case actually a lot of times, the healer or facilitator is in their ego. The person coming in, the client for the session, is in their ego, and they both have some kind of session. And in the end, they both are like, oh, we did healing work. I'm helping this person, and this person is da 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 da. But it's an egotistical masturbation where they both think they're doing something when really they're just moving pieces around in the air, if you know what I'm saying. Like nothing's actually really happening. And in fact, this is another way in which you need to be aware of having energetic hygiene. Whatever this person's shadow is, whatever they touch is infected with that. And whenever you encounter whatever they touch, you're going to see their shadow. So if you, for example, are really attracted to some sort of like leader and they're really smart and they're really good at talking and you love their lessons, well, you can tell they have a little bit of narcissism. Okay. If you go to one of their retreats, what do you think is going to happen? Yeah. Agla?
Well, the energy will get mixed with mine.
Yeah. Well, what do you mean by that? What do you think might happen?
I might follow that path or be experiencing the same egotistic or, yeah, kind of like doing the report when you do the same thing the other person is doing.
Stephen?
I feel that you're giving your energy away to that narcissist and it's keeping you stuck.
Okay. So as you both know, the narcissist position, especially when they're like the leader and they're like giving you talks or whatever, they're in the outside of take position in the wheel of consent. So where would you be if you go to their retreat? Outside of yeah, Agla.
Outside of allow.
So what are some other words that are outside of allow? Steven?
Yeah, you are the victim.
Right. Some other words outside of allow are you're the victim, you are enduring, you feel shame, you start to doubt your reality, you start to feel confused about what you think, what you feel, who you are. You get gaslit really easily, and you're blamed for whatever really the narcissist is responsible for. So at this retreat, something's going to go down where you're going to get psychically attacked real bad, maybe by your fellow participant because they're infected by the energy, and you feel horrible, you know, but you're going to think, oh, the leader is good. It was just me. I had that one experience. It's my fault, right? But the leader is good. And in this way, you're giving the leader more and more energy, their entity more and more energy. That kind of person is more in the position of a rock star, where the rock star has a very strong entity and all that fame and all that adulation and all that, especially the sexual energy going towards a rock star. And that can happen to spiritual leaders as well. You know, it is the case. And sometimes the spiritual leaders take advantage of it, but whatever. Not really whatever, but I'm going to move on from that. Like it just makes the entity's energy like bigger and stronger. So now it's not like the parasite is on one tree because that tree is influential. Now the parasite is like over like many trees. And personally, I have seen this in Kopangan, Thailand, which is an island where a lot of hippies like to go to and do a lot of detox retreats and stuff like that. But there's a lot of tantra going on that island, and there is a ton of black sex magic going on where the leader, their whole organization is effed up. And if you go to even like a basic level class, it's dirty. Even if you think the knowledge is good, the energy is dirty. So you have to be very aware of, can you see your teacher's shadow? How clean or aware or integral do you think your teacher is? And you'll see their shadow based on all the things that they touch. Like if their emails to you are all messed up, or their website's all messed up, or you go to one of, like I went to a retreat where half the people thought they were going to a different retreat because the website was messed up. So it was a kind of a training where you needed to do 2 parts of the training to get your certificate. So people thought they were going to the other part of the training, but because they had bad boundaries, they're like, oh, it's okay. You know, I'm okay. I'm just here for what is here to hear happen. It is thousands of dollars in 10 days of your life. And you have to fly to Bali for this. And you're just okay that you're taking the wrong training. I don't think that's okay. So you can see how narcissistic the leader was because the confusion and like the excusing was very strong in the group. I've seen this even on a very small scale where as I was traveling, I encountered someone, we started talking, and he started to like what I had to say because he was into working on himself and stuff like this. But I don't think he's really encountered spiritual healing work on whatever I'm talking about. He liked it. So we spent a lot of time together, and he took me to dinner, and we went to a restaurant that I'd been to before, but something incredible happened where I didn't know because this was a new reality. That restaurant also had a hostel attached, which I never encountered before. And then something happened with people who were staying at the hostel who apparently used the kitchen after they had checked out. And the owner was so angry, and it was really uncomfortable for us to watch all this go down. And then she was walking around with a pan in her hand, yelling, which is really scary. And then after the hostel people left, thinking, oh, it's a huge misunderstanding and it's not really their fault because they were told it was okay, but not by her, by someone else. She came to us, bystanders, and she's like, you know, I didn't do anything. They were the wrong ones, right? And then she walked off, and I was like, oh my God, what is this? And with my normal boundaries, it's like, I can never eat here again. Like, this place is effed up. I can never eat here again. In the future, I went back one more time and things were normal again. I realized it was him, the guy I was with. He created this commotion because the thing that he was the most angry with her about was that the hostel people were already leaving. Like the discussion was basically over. But she just kept going on and on with the pan, and she needed to be seen. And I was pointing out that she couldn't see them, right? Like for them, it was an honest mistake. They thought they had permission. So for them, it was an honest mistake, but she couldn't see them. So for her, it was a huge violation. All they were doing was violating her. But since she can't see herself, she had to come to us and ask us to see her. It was them, right? Not me, right? And that's why she had to be extra harsh with the pan because she was feeling really fearful. So her inability to be seen or see others clearly is her shadow. I'd never seen it before like that because interacting with me before that incident and after that incident, she was really okay. I actually found her really intelligent and culturally fluent and stuff like this. He brought that out of her. You could say that in some ways, he lives in one reality where people maybe act like that all the time. And I live in a different reality. And that one day we spent together, I saw his reality. I saw his shadow because he didn't show me that personally, but I saw his shadow in the world around us. So my reality, like the fabric of the video game I live in, started to change. And so it was really incredible. So if that can happen with just someone you're having a meal with one day, imagine if you agree to a container, with someone healing you. I used to have a colleague who I stopped being her friend because her boundaries made me really upset. I used to think that her sessions were pretty good. They weren't like always amazing, but pretty good. And one person I had referred to her in the past reported to me after I stopped being her friend and stopped referring people to her. They reported to me that in a session they had had with her, a negative entity had come into the session. And they both thought it was a positive entity because the entity masqueraded as a well-known, positive religious figure. So like, oh my gosh, this person connected with you. Now they're your spirit guide. So this person started working with this entity for months afterwards, and little by little by little started to lose trust in this entity because this entity was asking this person to do very unsafe things. So when they reported that to me, I'm like, that was a really unsafe session, and that reflects her boundaries. I feel unsafe with her, so I'm not even friends with her anymore, let alone get a session from her. So you have to be very aware of people's shadows and small things like if you guys share a Netflix account, oh shit, what does that do? If you're on the same family plan with your cell phone or something like this, if someone purchases for you a plane ticket, how is that going to affect your trip? Like everything this person touches, their shadow is going to be reflected. I remember I had a friend who recommended a massage therapist. It was a very bad session, not good. And when I was complaining to her afterwards, she was like, oh, I thought he wouldn't do that with you. He did that with me, but I just thought he wouldn't do that with you. I'm like, so that's your shadow. You're the violator. You knowingly recommended someone who violated you to me. You're the violator. So you have to be very careful. I noticed that when people, especially give me referrals, their referrals really reflect their shadow, So yes, I will pause right there. Any thoughts, questions, or comments so far?
It just reminds me don't tell anybody your plans either.
Yes, that's not
Yeah.
smart. Unless their vibration is high enough that they genuinely can uplift you, support your plan with you, and help create a field that makes your plan stronger. But that person probably has less in their shadow than you, and is probably even a higher vibration or higher consciousness than you. Like you have to trust their shadow more than you trust your ego almost. Agla?
Well, I was thinking kind of protections for our energy. So that's one.
What do you mean?
Is to be aware of the surroundings and the people around you.
That leads me into talking about this, where I knew a guy who designed clothes for festivals. So he went to festivals all the time. That was his lifestyle. He was probably always high on drugs. And he's designed clothes for festivals, sold them at festivals, wore his festival clothes all the time. He was basically spiritual bypassing all the time, but he thought he was high vibe because he was always in a good mood, right? But has he done any healing work? No, but he did get something glued to his teeth that were sparkling, and he was really feminine. So he did this like ritual before each festival that had crystals and like bringing in Archangel Michael or something like this, or Archangel something Metatron. And like by calling upon these names, he, he is like set, I can go into the festival, nothing will affect me. Do you think this is effective? You're shaking your
No,
head.
it's because I used to believe so. So
Why are you shaking your head?
because now I understand it's not helping. That's entities you are calling.
Yeah. So you're saying like Archangel Michael, Metatron, whatever, those are entities. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, even when you're using essential oils, and some essential oils can be really powerful. I mean, some people use essential oils to do entity removal, those are entities within the essential oils that you think of as positive, right? And a lot of people work with plant medicine. They think of those entities as positive. Um, this is my opinion. This might make some people upset, but you don't have to agree with me. This is my opinion. If you have an extraordinarily high vibration, disembodied spirit, a spirit that is so high in vibration, it doesn't even have a human body. If it's very high in vibration, it probably doesn't care about you. Do you care about the bickering between the neighbors amongst the ants in your backyard? And do you take a side? And do you like change things so that one ant can win over the other ants? You just don't care. You don't care. So if you cared, what does that make you? Lord of the ants. What does that make you?
Because you're the parasite.
Yeah, you're kind of like using the ants to enhance your own ego, right? Because you can control them because you are so much bigger than them and stuff like this. Personally, I think, again, you don't have to agree with me. I think an entity that comes down, whether you think of it as positive or negative, if it comes down to like meddle with humans in any kind of way, even when it looks like it's trying to help you heal, even when it looks like it's trying to help you heal, it can't help but have its own agenda. And whether or not you think the exchange is worth it in the end is up to you, you know. But personally, I like not giving my willpower over to anything. And even if you do like to do certain things, like for example, taking plant medicine where your consciousness is completely changed, that's very strong. That is giving your willpower over for sure. But if you're like holding onto a crystal, are you giving your willpower over? Is it changing your consciousness? Is it like affecting your vibe? There are certain things that are kind of, let's say, lighter. For example, like acupuncture can be very powerful, but it can be like lighter than something like, let's say, rolfing, where your muscle fibers are, your fascia is being broken apart. Like there are different applications for different modalities. And if for, I know some people who are crazy about crystals, they use crystals for everything. To me, that's similar to using acupuncture for everything, as opposed to maybe you want to do some, somatic work where you learn to breathe and stand differently and to release tension in your foot so that you can release your neck, stuff like this. Like, to me, that stuff can be as powerful as it helps you shift yourself. So if by smudging your room, you're like, my room is clean, nothing's going to come in here, but it's more your energy. You know what I mean? And the smudging just helped you do that. But if you are dirty and you're a victim, you're like, oh, I'm under a psychic attack, let me just smudging. Like the smudging almost does nothing. You know what I mean? You guys been smiling. Okay.
We
Uh,
can all relate to that.
You can relate to that. Yeah. I've seen a
Yeah.
lot of people do that. I've seen not just a lot of people do that, but I've seen a lot of people hold spaces where there's really intense energy work being done. Like let's say a family constellations retreat where there is like 10 family constellations, little groups in the room, and they're all doing stuff where people are crying and angry at their father and and no one's cleaning the room. And then the room is just like filled with shit. And you're just like sitting in the room filled with shit. There's some kind of almost like doing the in quotation marks healing work to create a negative energy to like swim in and then also keep yourself low. I've noticed there's a breathwork teacher I know who loves when like negative shit comes up for people. Her entity likes to just like suck that in. You know, she just loves it when people go, "Oh, I did the homework last night and oh, this like trauma with my mom came up. I haven't thought about it since I was like 14 years old and I couldn't sleep." And she's like, "Oh, you know," but she's like sucking it in like a witch. So her shadow. So she kind of uses this breathwork technique as a scrim to collect low vibrational energies from people through pretending to heal. Okay, let me go into maybe like a solution or something like that. So I was talking about basically how energetic hygiene has to do with spiritual warfare. And the idea is when you're outside of your boundaries and when you're under psychic attack and when people can affect you and change your actual reality, like the people in your life change or the way they behave actually changes, or people swap out. So like the bad dog trainer swaps out with the good dog trainer, like your vibration changes, your consciousness changes, your reality changes, and your sense of yourself and your sense of life changes. Um, and at first, your parents affect you quite a bit and they help you feel not yourself. So you think that who you are is different from who you actually are. And who you actually are might feel like gross or scary to you, or even you're allergic to it. You look down on it. Like, especially, can you imagine if you're one of those people who in this lifetime you're supposed to live in the forest and be like crazy on top of a tree, you know? Like, it takes a brave person to go there. And, you know, people have done it. Anyway, um, throughout your life, through all these kinds of avenues, you will be repeatedly attacked to feel the same feeling, like, for example, guilt, so that your old reality feels safe and you don't even seek or you feel allergic to a new reality. So, what this ends up doing is it literally shortens your life and gives your life force energy to the entities around you, and it gives you disease and all this kind of stuff. Energetic hygiene is basically having boundaries, but not just any boundaries, because there's a lot of false boundaries out there, just like there's a lot of false teachers out there, false healers out there. If the boundary is protecting your wild in nature, riding at the top of a tree, true self, those are your real boundaries. And when you protect those, that's the only way to really get rid of these negative effects, even to the point where this kind of text message that would have brought you down 2 years ago, you don't like it because it's definitely negative energy directed towards you, but you feel more comfortable being your true self. And that thing is trying to make you feel like your false self. And you're like, but my false self feels uncomfortable to me. So I see what you're doing. You know, this doesn't work on me anymore. Um, People directing negative energy towards you will never feel good. You know, the bank, the hospital, the grocery store messing with you and like double charging you or whatever they're doing that brings your life force energy down and just makes you frustrated and makes you lose your day doing like admin tasks. That's never fun. But when you're closer to your true self, you're going to have more life force energy available to you, and therefore it won't hurt as bad. Whereas before, you're already like negative 10%. So if it's making you negative 40% to deal with this thing, so you're overwhelmed. You know, right now, maybe you're positive 80%. So even if it takes you down to 50%, you're like, I don't like it, but I'm still chugging along kind of thing. You know, I can weather it better. And the thing that makes this really hard for people is depending on how true a person you are. If you are a real person, which means you probably resonate with the kind of spiritual journey I'm talking about, you have to let go of so much. And for a lot of people, there are some no-goes, or they are too nostalgic or addicted. So for a lot of people who are starting out, when they start to even just go to talk therapy, like a regular psychologist, and they just want to figure out their mom. You know, they're so addicted to their mom. Sometimes letting go of your mom can be a no-go. You know, if you're too culturally indoctrinated, certain cultures I think really emphasize the mom. Um, like you can't imagine your life without a mom. So even if she's a very faulty mom, and even if her entities are affecting your own child, you know, like you still want to have that mom in your life. And I know people who have healed, become healers, done a lot of work on how their mom traumatized them. But once they have children, the distance they created to keep themselves safe, they close the gap so that their children have a grandmother and like horses to play with because grandma has a horse farm. So you're prostituting your child's life force energy for horses? Are you kidding me? What do you think this reveals about the person who does that?
All the work is not done for the person. Like it didn't fix whatever the problem was with their mom.
Yeah. What do you think would fix the problem with the mom?
I want to say cutting her off the life, even for the children.
Okay. Stephen?
Yeah, you got to protect your children, so it's protecting yourself. So you need to do what's necessary.
This is what I'll say. Even if you've completely cut off your mom, even if your mom is dead, you can still have a wrong energetic attachment. And this is what you, in my opinion, you actually need to do to solve this issue. You have to be the divine mother yourself. If you cut off your mom, or even if she's passed, but you're still an unhealed, kind of insufficient divine mother, you have shame about your ability to mother yourself. You actually mother yourself patently badly, like the dog training girl. She's a horrible mother to herself, horrible. So even if she cut off her family that financially stole money from her and cut off all of her friends who also steal money from her, and just she cuts everyone off, um, I don't think she can even stand that because she hates herself so much. She would rather be distracted by everyone else. Because when everyone else is in her life, at least she's the better person morally. And a lot of times people get off on being the morally better person when everyone else is parasiting off of them. They feel like morally the better person, like, oh, they need me, something like that. And so when you don't need anything from anyone, this is really important. When you don't need anything from anyone, this is really important. When you don't need anything from anyone, you can maybe then start to think that you've started to heal. Because if you need someone to witness you, if you've had a victory, maybe 15 years in the making, and you've had a huge victory. I'm not saying like career achievement. I'm talking about like healing journey thing, where something that was just like almost impossible seeming before, you finally did it. And after this, maybe you can show your light to the world. And there's no one to tell, and there's no one to celebrate with you, and it's only you witnessing you, there can be an incredible existential feeling of loss, loneliness, or like, is there meaning in life? Literally, I'm just going to say, I don't think there's inherent meaning to life. I think the meaning is what you give to it. It's your own consciousness that gives whatever happens meaning. So if your own consciousness is not good enough and you need someone else, you are screwed. You're not healed. That's definition. So if you can do everything yourself, like you don't need anything from anyone, then maybe you can start to mother another and be the divine mother for them, because then you can properly witness them, which is what the divine mother really should be doing. Like she needs to be attuned to the child, knowing what the child needs, and feeling full and sufficient enough that I can provide this for my child. If that woman can't provide horses on her own for her child, she needs to prostitute herself and her child to their faulty, traumatizing mother for horses. That's not a good parent. A good parent can find a way. You'll find a way for the horses, right? Like whatever you have to do, you'll find a way. But she was faulty. She was lacking, and that's why she couldn't even hold space for a good session. And well, it's the same person. And in that session, a negative entity can come in, and she thinks it's a positive entity because she can't tell what's good or bad. I also want to say this: if you have a spat with someone and you can't do their thing anymore. Like let's say there's a store in town, they really did you dirty. You'll never go in there again. But they have the best bread in town. Best. Okay? You have a best friend and they also live in the same town. And they know that this store did you dirty. How would you feel if that friend kept going to that store and eating the bread themselves, even though you don't get to have the bread? What do you think?
Kind of feels like they're stabbing you in the back
Yeah.
because they hurt you. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Algo, do you have something to say?
No, it's betrayed. Yeah,
Yes. Yeah. So this points to a couple other things. Like basically, if you do have a friend like that, they want to be your friend and the store's friend, or their ego is so strong, they can't give up the bread and or give up you. They need to have both or something like this. By choosing the bread and the store basically over you and your safety and your dignity, they're choosing to lose you as your friend. You have to cut them off because they're not respecting you. They're not respecting your energy. It's like that store energetically raped you. They're your violator and they're giving your rapist their money, their energy, and saying like their social approval and saying, you guys are okay. Your bread is so good. I forgive you. How's that any different than the horses? You know? So people are willing to prostitute their dignity and prostitute their energy body for all kinds of weird social surface level things. And if you don't have a proper divine mother, you will need that bread to get through the day, you know, because you need maybe cookies, maybe you need coffee, you need stupid things to get through the day, and you don't know how to go without because you don't feel full. You need to fill up on other things. So it's not always the bread, it can be other things. But some people just can't stand being cut off access. I remember when I started riding a lot of cabs near where I live. You have to take a cab often, and there's no Ubers, so you have to negotiate the price before you enter the cab, and then you're in the journey. And unlike I think a lot of other cultures where like the ride is your experience, they're serving you, you're the customer, where like your experience matters the most. Here it's a little bit more like you're in their car and it's their experience, even though you're paying them money. It's just the cultural norm. So in the beginning, things are my reality is different now. Back then, I was like, we're working on, okay, I need to ask them to turn off the music because this is too much for me. Um, I would have people, wait, where's the point of the story? But I'll tell you the story. I would have people angry at me that like I dare ask them to turn off the music. That's because they like needed the music to even drive. Like they couldn't stand their own experience. And so we got into a lot of conflict when I'm like, I just want to ride in silence. I actually meditate when I'm in the car, you know, and this is extremely painful for me to listen to this vibration. Um, the yeah, like the people who had the most anger towards me and that were most hostile were the most addicted. And, you know, and the people who were not addicted were like, oh yeah, sure, you know, and they turn it off because whether or not they think the right is for them or for me, they have enough space to give that to me. You know, they feel abundant enough. They have enough energy points, you know? So back to what it takes to have energy hygiene, I'm basically saying the main reason why you're probably prostituting yourself to have these surface level things, and these surface level things then really hurt you bad, is because you don't think you can provide those things for yourself. Like the dog training girl lady, she didn't know how to change her dog's energy from shifting herself. Her dog is just her shadow. So her dog didn't need training. She needed to heal more, essentially, you know? So that's why she needed something on the outside. And she was addicted to giving her energy away to something on the outside. Um, basically, energy hygiene means protecting the boundaries of your true self, the crazy one in the tree, and having the divine mother within yourself so that you don't need to be witnessed by anyone else. You don't need anything from anyone else, and you feel full. And therefore, you can give to others even without desperately losing energy points yourself and then needing to prostitute your whole family for horses. That is the point. um, any other thoughts, questions, or comments? Could I ask for a concluding statement or like a concluding kind of like, aha, this today I learned this from either of you or both of you? Do you have that? Something surprising?
Well, a lot of things that were surprising. The unbalanced energy that I am creating for myself, the awareness that I need to have on my surroundings, to understand what is mine, what is not, and what I can shift,
Mm.
and be the mother for myself that I need to be. So taking care of myself, loving myself, and understanding what I need, and also what you said about the reality I'm living, when I need someone to see it or to witness it. That is a blow mind as idea. Like I never thought of that. Like just witness it for myself, and that's shift a lot of things, right? Like because what I was thinking is like I usually use social media to post my
Mm.
pictures, to what I'm doing, when I'm traveling, and at the end it's not worth it. Like the experience is mine, so I live for myself, basically.
Thanks. Could you please speak more about this idea of the unbalanced energy?
Oh yeah, because I was always thinking like when I do the exercise or the crystals, or when I was meditating to the archangels, um, that was protection, or that was cleaning it, like cleaning the outside energy. So that make me act not as myself, or be unhappy, or sad, angry, all these emotions that I thought there was an outside energy that unbalanced my own energy. That's what I meant. But then I'm learning that it's not only the outside, it's not probably, it is also what I'm feeding inside of myself, giving more food to shame, giving more food to guilt, and then unbalance my own energy.
Mm.
Is that
Thank you.
more clear? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank
And
you.
you're welcome. And also, what you're saying is making me think about this the idea of divine mother, divine father. It's like, personally, I think that since the masculine is consciousness, um, your masculine and feminine are basically equal in strength to each other, meaning if you have a very strong feminine, that can only be the case because you have a very strong masculine to hold her. If you have a very strong masculine, equally, that can only be the case if you're very, very abundant and you feel very, very full. Because if you feel scarce, if you're like jealous, even this kind of thing, oh, that means your feminine is really, really low, and you have like no masculine to speak of. They go up and down together. And so this witnessing yourself, it's kind of interesting because you could see it academically like, oh, that has to be the masculine, the masculine witnesses. But today, for these boundaries things and the energetic hygiene, it's like if you don't love yourself, which is the feminine, if you don't love yourself, I think that witnessing is not possible. Like there's a fundamental feeling of you are meaningless. So if something happens and there's no one there to witness, um, you feel panicked, honestly. Am I making sense? And the thing that makes you not panicked is actually your divine feminine. You're like, I have inherent value. Um, I hope this is not going too off, but I'll mention this. So, like a lake, right? A lake is water, feminine. Does she have meaning? And what I'm arguing is she doesn't have inherent meaning. You don't have to agree with me. Um, but her meaning is based on her witness, her viewer. So many cases, it's like maybe you could argue an animal witnessing the lake, but I don't think the animal has an ego in the way that we do. So maybe more like a human witnessing the lake. Now the lake has meaning because of the interaction between the two of us. But the lake obviously has inherent value. So if a human never encounters the lake and the lake dies because millions of years has passed and the topography is different, that lake had incredible existential value. But meaning is a different thing that only we can give to something. And that can only be determined by your own level of healing. So if you're not healed, you have low meaning. And if you're very healed, you have high meaning. And on top of that, when you're not healed, you think of yourself as having low value, which is not true. right? The lake has inherent value no matter what, right? And even if the lake is like this small because it's almost dead, it still has inherent value. And if the lake is like humongous because it's at its peak, it still has inherent value. Inherent, you cannot take away anyone's inherent value. But if you're unhealed or healed, you're going to see yourself as having low or high meaning, low or high value, and that all is determined by the divine mother. Okay, anyway, Stephen, concluding statement.
Yeah, I've noticed a pattern in myself today that I actually replace habits with other habits, and I think the other habits actually better, but it's actually not. An example would be I've stopped drinking alcohol for 6 months, but I've replaced it by watching YouTube every day. So it's just like another distraction, and I think I'm doing better, but I'm actually not. And then another one today was like when you go up in vibration, like that person, and like maybe to change your life, like that person's already there, but you just don't know they're already there because you can't see them. They're not in your frequency yet. So that was nice to hear. Like if I shift, the person already exists for my next step in where I'm supposed to go and my healing journey, or you know, and and yeah, that's what I got. I had something else, but I can't remember what it was.
This habits being replaced by other habits. What is that related to from today?
Because my energetic hygiene is keeping me stuck, is keeping me distracted from going on a journey. Like, so I've seen a pattern when you were talking today. Like, I'm not mothering myself. I'm not parenting myself how I should be.
Okay,
Yeah,
that more
Like,
good.
oh, I'm sorry.
Go
Like
ahead.
feeding the same entity with a different food, something like that. Can it be?
Oh yeah. What I almost hear you saying is something like you were your own false healer, going, oh, yeah, I'm doing a good healing session with someone. And that person came in for a session going, yeah, I'm healing myself. But really, nothing really happened. But they both can egotistically congratulate themselves that they're in quotation marks doing healing work. And you just replaced one habit with like a different habit that seems better, but it, like Agla says, it still feeds the same entity, which is probably shame.
definitely.
Yeah, because distraction is a lack of consciousness or presence, which is outside of take on the wheel of consent. And that's something we talked about earlier, where if one person is outside of take, it's like the violator. So in this case, you're the self-violator. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other thoughts, questions, or comments?
I just like the idea of like being a better mother to yourself than what your mother was to you.
That
Yeah,
is basically literally one of my definitions of healing. That's it. Yeah. If you are mothering yourself better than your own mother mothered you, you have healed. Okay. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for your contributions and your presence and your questions and your shares. I really, really appreciate your gathering here with me today and creating this experience. Um, thank you, and I'll see you next time. Bye.